going on, everybody? Welcome to the Life Jacket Podcast, where we talk about topics to help you get through the ways of life. My name is AJ.
And I'm Bless.
And if you're new here, before every episode, we always start with our win for the week. So for me, my win for the week is my family business. We own an automotive business. We got a grant from the city to help us with the roof, to get the roofs fixed. If you don't know, roofs are crazy expensive.
Yeah.
And so definitely thankful to, get a grant from the city to help us fix our roof. So how about you, Bless?
Good. So my win of the week, I was able to be consistent this week with intermittent fasting and my dieting. Lost some weight, which is my goal, summer body, whatever. So just glad I was able to accomplish that for this week.
Great. So we're going to dive into this episode, the power of forgiveness, releasing resentment for inner peace. And, forgiving someone can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I know me, Bless, everybody. I think we've all experienced a point where we had a really hard time forgiving someone, and it took a really long time. And what wound up happening is that over the years, you lose your inner peace when you don't forgive someone and let go. And so we really just want to talk about the importance of, forgiving someone, how it can affect you, and the power of just letting go. So, Bless, you want to go ahead and dive in?
Yeah. So forgiveness, I believe it's like the conscious effort of releasing that resentment or that anger towards somebody who's per se harmed you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you forgive, you're not condoning it, but you're also releasing it from yourself so that way you can be able to grow and be the person you are. Because when you have that resentment of not being able to forgive somebody, that's a burden on you, regardless if you want to believe it or not, for your progression as a person and your inner peace as a person. Regardless of, even if that person's still not in your life, if you're not forgiving them, they're still affecting you negatively, and they may not even be in your life, and you should never let anything affect you for that long period of time, especially if it's possible to forgive.
And forgiving someone, it's not just about, you're not doing it for them.
Yeah, no,
You're doing
it's
it for you.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you're realizing like this person has way too much power over me, and I need to forgive them and let them go. So I'm gonna start off with you for the next question. What's a time where you didn't forgive someone, or it took you a really long time to forgive somebody?
Oh man. So they try to say forgive and forget.
Yeah.
It's still not forgotten. Like the time, I'm not going to say anybody's name. I'm not going to put anybody on the blast because they might be watching this. But I got in a fight. I got in a nice little fist fight with an individual over something that I was defending someone else because that person shouldn't have been fighting the person that they were fighting. And I jumped in, I tried to stop it, I got hit, so I retaliated and tried to fight back and stuff like that. And then the person ended up trying to get a weapon, like a baseball bat or something like that, and tried to hit me and was gonna like pop tires on my car and stuff like that. So the whole thing really was I was defending someone that they supposedly cared about, and I ended up being the person wrong in this situation. And I could that I it was hard, to forgive that person because they were mad at me that I got cut off and I was looked at as being the wrong person. And that was just something to where I couldn't stare at that person, I couldn't talk to him. And this, honestly, it was somebody like blood related. And eventually I had to get to a point where we ended up talking about the situation, why it happened, and trying to move on from it. But the forgiveness part of it, and this happened when I was a lot younger, I didn't have the mental capability or the strength or the will to want to forgive this person. So it took quite some time before eventually I was like, all right, well, let's try to forgive and see how this works. What about
Nah,
yourself?
I appreciate that's some real authentic feedback. For myself,
Uh,
it was one of my first girlfriends. You actually know her. We not saying no names on the
Hey,
podcast, but man, it was bad. I could not forgive her. I hated her. It was real bad, at least for a solid year and a half, 2 years.
yeah, goodness.
Yeah, it was real rough. It was messed with me. Like, had a hard time sleeping, wasn't really thinking straight. If I thought about the situation, I would get myself boiled up, and like I would start giving, you know, people random attitudes like, "Yo, what's wrong with you?" And not realizing like, "Yo, like it was inside me for so long." Just the hatred and just not being able to forgive them. And they apologized.
Hmm.
Well, she apologized and she reached out. I just couldn't do it. I was hot, and I don't really get mad like that. And it wasn't until I think I talked to my grandmother one day. She was like, "You need to forgive her. You know,
Yeah.
you're younger. You know, people make mistakes. It's okay." And it took about a year and a half, 2 years, and you know, I finally forgave her. I reached out. You know, I even reached out and apologized. You know, for putting her through that.
Yep.
You know, not guilt shaming, but just more or less like, listen, I was just mad at you, and I would say I forgave her, but then I didn't. I would just get mad again, like literally a couple days later, a couple hours later. And it just shows you the importance of being able to forgive and let go. And I'm being real authentic. It's not always easy. Whatever
Absolutely not.
situation, you know, me and you may be in, our viewers, I'm not saying it's easy to forgive and let go, but it's just the importance of like internally, man, it'll really mess with you if you can't take the time to forgive that person and not necessarily forgiving and letting go, but really just internalizing what happened and taking a step back out of the situation. Maybe they were going through something. Maybe there were outside situations, friends influenced them.
Hmm.
Maybe they were just younger, immature at the time. And the older you get, the more mature you're supposed to get and realize, you know, yes, that did happen, but, you know, I do forgive you and I moved on. And so, you know, me and Bless just sharing authentic stories, you know, we've been going through. And, you know, for the viewers out there, you know, really think about, you know, this episode right now, maybe pause for a second. You know, what's a situation that you haven't forgave someone or forgiven a situation and it's been messing with you mentally? You're angry, you're upset, you're mad, you know, you've got that burning in you where it's like
Yeah.
I can't let it go. So, you know, take that time out, Rod, to really reminisce, you know, have you forgave someone in a situation? Have you forgiven that person? And, you know, being able to really, you know, move on. And even you might be able to do it right now, but over time, you know, hopefully you're able to forgive that situation and move ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And with also saying that forgiveness, it plays a part in you as a person, your mental health. You know, you can be depressed, you have anxiety, you can constantly be running that situation back in your head. Your physical health with chronic anger, and you being not able to per se eat or enjoy food or want to get up and do things because you still have that anger and that resentment within you. And for relationships, like, it can really affect your relationship. And if you're with somebody and they did something wrong and you're not forgiving them, then you can't build again off of that. And that goes back to my situation where that happened with a family member. And me and that family member, we wouldn't be where we are now if somebody didn't decide to forgive somebody for the situation that we were in. And as we constantly try to be better people every single day, you have to be able to forgive eventually. I'm not, granted, it's not going to happen overnight. And you still might have those feelings, but you can't grow with still having those negative aspects in your life. And then lastly, I believe the emotional freedom of not letting somebody's act or whatever or hurt towards you affect you in the long run. Just to think about, say you decided not to forgive someone and they died the next day.
Mm.
And then now you've had that anger lined up within you, and you will never ever have that opportunity to be able to forgive somebody, and or to be able to give that person specifically. And that can even deteriorate your mental well-being because now you're upset that they died, and then you never said, hey, I forgive you, and you're better than what that situation is, and we can't grow because now they're gone. So definitely you got to take in those moments and realize people's life is short, and forgiveness is one of those things where you don't want to be with the short end of the stick and not be able to do.
And there's a saying that hurt people. And I can tell you like once my ex we broke up, like I was so angry. I definitely was probably took it out on the next woman I talked to.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the next two, and I feel horrible looking back at it, but it's, you know, you really have to heal from situations,
Hmm.
and part of healing is forgiving. And what, like you talked about meditation, exercise. I think one thing that's really important is just acknowledging what happened. You can't just sweep it under the rug. It's not
Oh
gonna
yeah.
work. You have to understand, like, yes, this happened. I'm going through it, and acknowledging that hurt. Even setting boundaries for yourself, giving yourself, listen, I'm not ready to date, other women right now.
Hmm.
I need to give myself some time to really heal from what just happened, process it. How could I mature from this? How can I grow from it, and then put myself back out there in the dating field? Is really, really important as well. I encourage everyone, not just in dating, but just in general, when you're in the process of forgiving someone, it's not going to be quick, depending on how deep the hurt is. It's more or less understanding what happened, comprehending it, and then even sometimes reaching out to them, like, hey, listen, I'd like to meet with you in person, or I'd like to talk to you over the phone. When I said I forgave you a couple months ago, I didn't really forgive you. I was
Hmm.
still upset about what happened. I didn't like that you did this, but I'm here now, to say, hey, I forgive you. I apologize for, maybe gaslighting you or lying to you, saying I forgave, but I really didn't. And then, you're acting a certain way, and then you're like, well, why are you acting this way? It's because I didn't really,
Yeah.
forgive you at the end of the day. And so, I think that's important. Just moving forward when trying to forgive someone.
Yeah, it's a step process. You've mentioned the part about the acknowledging the hurt and realizing or trying to understand maybe why they did what they did, even if you don't agree with it, to try to get back into their shoes of maybe there was a reason for it and there might not be a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to look at the whole spectrum of why that action was taking place to then truly understand. Even if you don't agree with it, you can't move on from something that you don't really understand. It's always going to constantly be back in your head of why did this happen? Why did this happen? And now it hurts me. And viewers, if you're in a situation where someone hurt you and you can't forgive them, you have to trust the process of taking the steps. We're not telling you guys to do it overnight. You definitely have to be patient. And then once you do forgive someone, you have to be able to set those boundaries. Because like, hey, like if me and you are close friends and you did something to me and we're not just going to be immediately cool again. Like we're going to have to set boundaries. And that actually happened to me in a situation as well where we weren't forgiving each other and then we like, okay, we're going to forgive each other. But the next day, we're not like, "Hey, I'm telling you these new secrets and stuff like that." You got to set
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and let that trust build because it was broken through the hurt of the action that they presented.
And another thing too is being patient. Like, I
Absolutely.
know I've been in situations where I've apologized to somebody and they didn't forgive me, and then I'm like, well, I apologize, but then you have to, you know, realize that maybe what you did to them really hurt them,
Yep.
and you can't rush the process of them wanting to forgive you. That might take a little bit while too. And
Hmm.
as long as you know, and this is something I had to realize too with I told one of my exes, is that I had to take a step back and realize, she was being patient. I wasn't ready at the time, but she did what she was supposed to do. She reached out, she apologized multiple times. She did what she was supposed to do. And now it's up to me one day to realize, okay, I do forgive you,
Yep.
and be patient with the person. And I think a lot of times, especially right now, we're not patient. We're in the society where nobody's patient. Everybody wants everything fast. You want them
Yep.
to forgive you immediately. For example, I've never done this, but say I cheat on a woman. I never have, by the way, viewers. And I apologize to her. It doesn't mean she's gonna forgive me right away.
Yeah.
It's not. It might take her a year, and then you've got to earn that trust back, and
Hmm.
you've got to keep going. And so I think being patient is like a really big process of forgiveness.
As well, and then self care. Like you can, you have to know you. Goes back to other episodes and who you are as a person in order to be able to forgive. Because forgiving is a very big step that is not necessarily talked about, and it's not, like I said, it's way easier than said than done. And you have to understand it's not to forgive. Yes, it's for the other person if they're saying sorry, but it has to be for you. And so maybe that's why it took a while for you to be able to forgive
Mm-hmm.
her because like you weren't over it. Like
Mm-hmm.
granted, you didn't agree with it, but for your mental capabilities and your mental health, you had to be able to understand what was going on in your life to be able to actually forgive her.
And I'm not even this is not a relationship podcast. What they say about that the young love, your first love, it'll turn you to a monster.
Yeah,
Really, if you don't get a hold on it. So yeah, I agree. And so main point we're trying to really bring home is if you're trying to forgive somebody and you're not ready yet, just communicate that. Listen, I know you're apologizing to me and I hear you. I'm just not there yet right now. I'm still mad at you. These feelings are still real. I appreciate you reaching out. Once I get to a better point in my mental health in my life where I'm ready to forgive you, I'll reach out and we can have a conversation. That's a real good way of handling it instead of just saying, oh, yeah, I forgive you and just keep moving on with life. That's not real because you're still holding on to that. You're still holding on to what that person did to you.
yeah. Like granted, like you like we said, we don't talk about necessarily relationships, but just
Mhm.
it's probably one of the easiest things to correlate in this situation. Granted, you're in a relationship with someone, you do something wrong, whatever it may be, and then that's brought back up in the next argument.
Mhm.
Like you didn't really forgive me because you said, okay, it's cool. And then we move on, and then now we're having a conversation about something completely different. And then you're like, oh, well, remember that time you did XYZ or how I was hurt from this situation. And when you forgive someone, that's why it's a step process to really, truly forgive someone to where you're not bringing that up in the past. Like, let the past be the past, working on the present and the future because if you're looking back at it, you really didn't forgive him. Like simple as that. So, like just to reiterate everything, it's very important to understand that forgiveness is a process and understand the hurt, understand why it hurt you, the impact, and have that communication with this person saying, "Hey, you did this," and figure out why they did that or listen to their point of view and then truly forgive along with being patient because it's not, especially if it really hurt you, it's not going to happen overnight.
And even think about a scenario for yourself where you didn't forgive someone and think about how your life was going when you didn't forgive them. Were you so angry that you messed up a job interview? Were you so angry that you took it out on somebody else? Just think about different scenarios where when you didn't forgive someone, how internally it messed up other situations in your life. Granted, doesn't mean the feelings go away, but just to put into perspective of how not having inner peace can really I want to say mess up your life, but can navigate your life down the wrong avenue.
Absolutely.
And so, Bless, any big takeaways from this episode?
Power of forgiveness, man. It's one of those things that, like I say, easier said than done, and you just have to really trust the process and go through it by steps and not just think that it's going to happen overnight and truly forgive someone when you decide to make that move.
And I think for me, my biggest takeaway is also seek support. If you feel like a situation you're going through, you might be tripping or am I doing too much? Ask a friend, ask your therapist, ask a life coach, ask a counselor, maybe somebody you're close with that I just talked about and say, hey, this is a situation I'm going through. Is it okay to not forgive them in this moment? Am I being too hard on them? How am I navigating the situation? It doesn't mean you have to listen to them, but it's more about just seeking some type of guidance support just to make sure, like, okay, am I tripping? Or maybe I am tripping. I need to really forgive them because I'm dragging this out way too long.
Yeah.
And so just making sure you seek support however you say fit. And so with that, this is the end of the episode. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.